It's time to wander the world, and today, instead of visiting an individual destination, I want us to reflect on how fine dining experiences in particular can be a driver of tourism, not just for our city, but indeed for other destinations around the world as well. And I'll explain why I've got this on my mind in just a moment, but I want to repeat the invitation that if you would like to join the conversation, I would love to hear from our audience members whether you factor in food when you are planning a holiday. And that can be a local holiday or an international one. Have you made a pilgrimage to a particular town in South Africa because you wanted to try a specific restaurant there? Have you done the same overseas? Or perhaps planned an entire trip for the family because you've always wanted to try Sri Lankan food, Vietnamese food, Brazilian food, whatever it may be? What role does the food experience play in your concept of planning travel? You can tell us with a WhatsApp to 072-567-1567 or pop through an email to pippah@capetalk.co.za. Why am I thinking about this so much today? Well, because last night I attended the annual Gourmet Guide Awards, which recognize top fine dining destinations in South Africa. And I've asked their founder, Jenny Handley, to join us in studio today to firstly reflect on what happened at the awards last night, but also to talk about this bigger issue of how South Africa appeals to gourmet travelers, both local and international. Jenny, miraculous that you're still on your feet after the long night you had last night. Thank you for coming into studio and welcome.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Thanks. Firstly, congratulations on reaching the milestone of the 10th anniversary of the Gourmet Guide.
Thank you.
Take us back to the beginning of the story. What made you want to set up this publication and the awards that feed into it?
Well, I firstly had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I was doing a lot of freelance travel writing and visiting wonderful restaurants all over the world and interviewing chefs and reviewing the restaurants and then writing about them. And I just realized that there was no platform where South Africa could showcase all its culinary ability in one place, a beautiful compilation of what we offer to the world and to culinary travelers. So I then approached a publisher, and the first one I approached said, yes, we'd love to put this together. I then approached many of the top fine dining restaurants and started the journey of writing about them. And that was 10 years ago. We launched the first guide in 2016. And here we are. We've launched 2026. And it's been amazing to see how the industry has grown in popularity as a destination in that time.
Very specifically, fine dining experiences. This is not about bistro dining and casual dining.
No.
And obviously those have a role to play, and we'll talk about that later. But the decision to focus on the fine dining experience, what was that, just to make it manageable, or tell us more about how you directed it that way?
Well, I think often in so many fine dining experiences, they are showcasing the culture of the country. And they work hard at that, because if people are going to a country, let's say for only 3 days, they're very specific about where they want to eat and they want to feel the place. They want to learn about the people. And the fine dining restaurants, I think, spend a lot of time putting that together and really representing their regions, the ingredients that are grown there. And often you have a slightly more eloquent narration of the experience. And there's huge value in that too, because I always say in restaurants, we're not in the food business. We actually are in the people business. And for me personally, I loved going to places like Italy, where you'd have a waiter who would so proudly say, I'm fourth generation. My family has been working in this restaurant for many generations, and it's our home. It's what we do. And I didn't feel like we had that same level of pride in service in South Africa. So I was also determined to elevate the professionalism here.
I'm so glad you focused on that, because you're right. For so many people, it's sort of waitering is what you do when you can't find anything else to do, and it's seen as a temporary thing rather than, as you say, a profession, and a noble profession at that. And I'm thinking back to my waitressing days. There I was as a student working in a very upmarket restaurant at the time in Sandton, and with me, alongside me in the waitering staff, was Boba, who had fled Yugoslavia. Exactly a story like that. Entire generations of her family who proudly said, hospitality is what we do. And it's something you aspire to, being the best waiter in your village, or to have the best service offering in your village. It was something to be proud of, not to be sneered at. So I love the fact that you're elevating that sense of pride in the work. Now, Jenny, I mean, it's so hard to assess something like food, which is so personal, and one person's taste is different from another's. And to be able to do it in a way that is fair and reflective of our diversity in a country with as much diversity as ours has got to be a challenge. How do you actually go about rating the restaurants? Because you award a 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate sort of ranking system.
We do.
Tell us how you set that out. What are the criteria you consider, and what sort of consistency of meeting those criteria does a restaurant have to show?
Well, consistency is really important. So we're quite cautious about plating a restaurant, and there are many reviews who go both global and local. And it's interesting because the global reviews obviously come out in season. So they see the restaurants when they're really, really busy. The locals tend to go more in the quieter months. So I feel like we get a really good representation of what the restaurant offers. And the criteria are absolutely diverse, and it's everything around the food. It's from taste and texture and sourcing of ingredients. It's the kitchen ethos, and then of course there's the people element, and it's things like rapport with the guest, restraint, rhythm. And we always say the reviewer goes and enjoys the meal, but they're not only evaluating their own service. You know, I had an instance once, I was getting sterling service because I knew the people in the restaurant, but the table next to me were hopping up and down and pouring their own drinks, and at the end of the meal, in fine dining I might add, were stacking their plates because they were being ignored. So I'm not then evaluating my own service. I want to look at theirs and make that the evaluation.
Yeah.
So we're very aware of what happens in the restaurant, everything from the first nuance, from the welcome to the very last way in which the bill is served to you. That's all part of your experience.
You know, I'm smiling sitting here because one of your top stars, your 3-star winner of multiple years who got a gold plate last night, was Fane. And I've said several times on the show that the couple of times I've been privileged to eat there, they've been the most spectacular meals of my life. But what I'm going to remember of the experience of eating at Fane for the rest of my life is how they handled the situation when I accidentally walked out with somebody else's coat. Because on the night that I went, in the middle of winter, 2 of us arrived wearing literally identical, thick grey sort of coats. And as we were leaving, I slipped on the one that I thought was mine, and it wasn't. And the way they handled that situation with the very discreet phone call I got the next morning saying, you know, by the way, you were here last night. Did you by any chance, wouldn't you mind just checking? And, you know, it was handled with such delicacy because I was so embarrassed. And from that first phone call to how they treated me when I then arrived back the next morning with coat in hand, blushing to say, I'm so sorry. It was a world-class experience in customer service. And I'm never going to forget that for as long as I live, as well as I'm never going to forget the milk bun that I ate that night. But as you say, it's much more than just the tangible element of the food on the plate.
It's never just the food, yeah. Absolutely. And I also think that good people can save a mediocre meal. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always work the other way around. It is definitely people-centric. It's how you make people feel. Service is what you do. Hospitality is how you make them feel. And I think any restaurant can do that, not only in fine dining. Obviously, in that echelon of eating out, people spend more time training their staff and ensuring that people who haven't grown up in fine dining restaurants understand the nuances of where to stand, the body language, posture, when to interrupt, the level of familiarity, but, you know, according to that, and friendliness. So I think there's so many little aspects that can make it a really superlative experience.
Just for anybody who has come in midway to this conversation, our guest with me in studio is Jenny Handley, whose publication, The Gourmet Guide, has just published its 10th iteration off the back of last night's Gourmet Guide awards handed out here in Cape Town, recognizing our top fine dining destinations. And I want to just expand now from talking about, what makes a restaurant great to what makes a restaurant worth visiting and planning a trip around. And Jenny, it really struck me last night when you named your 3-plate winners. The 3-plate category was described as being worthy of a flight, offering world-class dining. And I thought, gosh, have I ever gotten on a plane and flown to a destination literally to go and eat somewhere? And I couldn't think of a specific restaurant I'd pursued, but I could certainly go, yes, well, one of the primary factors in our decision to go to destination A over B was because we wanted to experience the cuisine there, for example. It's more than just a tagline. How significant do you think gourmet tourism or fine dining tourism is for South Africa and specifically for Cape Town? Because, I mean, it was very noticeable last night that the bulk of the restaurants recognized were here in Cape Town. Jenny, I'm going to add to that by saying that over a decade ago, when I used to work as a speechwriter for one of our local destination tourism groups at the time, they were talking about this idea of gourmet gold, that this was one of their 4 pillars of growing the tourism market to Cape Town. 10, 15 years later? Have we done it? Are we putting ourselves on the map as literally a foodie destination?
Oh, I think we have, very definitely. Yep. And I also think it attracts people who come, let's say, to one fine dining restaurant that they really have aspired to enjoy. But while they're here, they also want to go to casual eateries, they want to go to markets, and they want to get to know our culture through the food. So there's absolutely no doubt that people are making reservations and then planning their holidays around it. I mean, I personally can't think of another way of planning a holiday. You know, I'll read about a restaurant and I'll go, oh, yes. And then I'll go home and say to my poor husband, you know, there's a new restaurant I'd like to try. And he goes, oh, that's fantastic. Where? Copenhagen. So he knows what to expect. But I know that's how I would start planning my travel, and then I would build around it because it's really important. Food is something that brings people together. It helps you get to know other people and to understand how they think.
It was obvious last night that a lot of thought is going into, and increasingly restaurants are paying more attention to, local provenance, where they source their ingredients, how they manage waste in their kitchens, how they conserve water in their kitchens, how they treat their people. Jenny, that idea of not just a local footprint on our food, but also a sustainable footprint on our food seems to be becoming more and more important.
It has, and we're very proud to have partnered with WWF SASSI for the last 3 years, and those are the factors that we look at. We also at the same time look at sustainability as longevity, creating a business where you grow the people, where you treat them well, it's ethical, and everybody in the organization actually understands the value of sourcing ethically, of behaving responsibly, and yes, lowering your wastage.
It's not just our perception that Cape Town is being recognized increasingly as a foodie destination. We've seen increasingly international lists featuring our top restaurants. We saw Condé Nast Traveller having the Reader's Choice Awards last year vote Mother City as the best city in the world for food. Obviously, it helps to be endorsed with international monikers like that. Jenny, how significant is that, do you think, in drawing particularly the international foodie tourist?
Well, I think it contextualizes for many people, particularly if it's a new destination that they haven't been to before. They love a trusted mechanism that's telling them what to expect. And I think that's where awards play a big role. And the perception management and the marketing is very important.
I'm so glad somebody asked about this, asking why do we not have Michelin stars in South Africa? Jenny, would you like to fill in? I mean, you've got your own version of a Michelin star in awarding the 3 plates to the top restaurant, etc. But do you want to just talk a little bit more about the Michelin Guide and how we feature or don't or might in future?
Well, happily. So I'm not sure that everybody realizes how it started, but it was in the 1920s when the Michelin brothers, who owned a tyre factory, decided that if people ventured further to enjoy restaurants, they would obviously then use more tyres. So that's how the Michelin Guide...
Did not know that.
Yes, that's how it started. Well, obviously it's come a long way since then. Yeah. And initially, most of the Michelin guides were actually in countries where they had a Michelin tyre factory. But it's obviously moved beyond that. And we're very excited to see that the hospitality, the Michelin keys are here. And yes, so we are very excited at the thought that the Michelin Guide is around the corner.
And of course, we already have a number of South African chefs working in other countries who have earned themselves Michelin stars. In fact, the list is getting too long to reel them off now, but Jan Hendrik being one of them in Nice, for example.
Yes.
Jenny, you do a lot of, as you mentioned at the start, you do a lot of international travel and food writing yourself, and you are somebody who will plan a holiday around a food destination. Maybe in our last few minutes, we can talk a little bit about some of the destinations that you want to flag for foodies who might not know how exciting a cuisine is, that a place is really worth going to discover its food. What comes to mind straight away for you?
Well, I think Vietnam. I've actually been twice, and I love the purity and the simplicity of the food, but it is a perfect representation of how people live.
Okay.
And one very good example is that locals, they visit the markets in the morning and the afternoon because they don't necessarily have refrigeration, and that's where they congregate and get to know one another around the food. And also they have this ethos that when they've had enough to eat and they're sitting on their haunches, eating maybe on the pavement, when their tummy hits their thighs, well, that's time to share the food with someone else. And I loved that. And I felt they're gentle people. It's such a beautiful place to go to. So I was very excited when I was, and honored, asked to lead a culinary tour to Vietnam next year. And I then asked, instead of asking for a fee for the for the professional part of the
it,
trip,
yes.
is to actually instead ask if a chef could go with me. So one of the plated chefs went into a lucky draw last night. The 3 restaurants that have been plated in every guide for the decade, we did a lucky draw, and we're absolutely thrilled that James Garg of La Colombe was the winner of the 10-day culinary tour to Vietnam next year.
I was so thrilled for that because a meal at La Colombe was my first ever experience of fine dining, and we're going back, I don't know how many years, longer than the Gourmet Guide has been around. So I was so thrilled because that team has really been a trailblazer for so many other chefs to follow, haven't they?
They certainly have, and I think also one of the first to put us on the world stage. And many, many people come out to South Africa, to Cape Town, to experience La Colombe. And I can guarantee that they're not disappointed. It is that is true destination dining worthy of a flight. So it's wonderful
really
to now see it happening the other way around, where we will be taking them to enjoy this amazing culinary tour with those who want to be with James.
I was going to ask, somebody's asking, is that open to the public, Jenny?
It certainly is. Yes,
okay.
It is.
If somebody wants to join, how do they make contact with you to ask for details?
They can look at our website, gourmetguide.co.
Okay, so on the website, you can find the details. I'm sure you won't be the only one looking, so I would look fast and inquire fast if I were you. What's the best time of year to do that, to visit Vietnam?
I always think, our mid-seasons, April and September, October, more predictable weather-wise, but any time of the year, there are always parts of Vietnam where the weather is actually good.
Okay.
And the food is going to be great all the time.
Okay. Any other destinations that for you are tied up with wonderful memories of travel where the cuisine was worth a flight, Jenny?
Oh, Japan.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'd go back in a heartbeat. I, again, loved the way people show their dignity, their humility. And Japanese chefs will work their entire lifetimes just to perfect one aspect of their craft. Absolutely focused, dedicated. And the food is incredible. Loved it.
Whetting my appetite big time. Okay. This is an interesting comment from somebody on the WhatsApp line. Fran in Stellenbosch saying, we're a family of celiacs with so many dietary requirements, so eating out is always a mission to find a suitable place. They have found a location in Somerset West called Babette's where they say there are lots of gluten-free options that they really enjoy. But there are so many cities around the world they say there's so many cities around the world who cater for celiacs, but unfortunately very few destinations in South Africa is their comment. Do you think that's a fair comment? Is it something we need to work on?
I think it has been worked on. I think it's getting much better than it was. I think all dietaries, the chefs are spending a lot of time trying to ensure that the menu is based particularly on vegetables, which is an easy platform, and then adding proteins and wheat and other ingredients so that they can always look after everybody.
Okay, that's a great idea. So building the structure of the dish being the plant focus. And obviously that's the more planet-friendly approach as well to do it that way. So it makes a lot of sense. Jenny, in the last few minutes, let's just come back to the restaurants that you plated last night. And it was such a lovely celebration. I have to say, the atmosphere in the room of the industry celebrating itself and the support for the newcomers, obviously the applause and the appreciation for those who've been doing this for a long time, who've led the way. But it was a lovely sense of real enthusiasm for seeing new restaurants opening up, new people getting their first accolade, for example. How excited are you by the new wave of restaurants that we are seeing opening in the fine dining space in Cape Town? Do you want to just give us a couple of examples of things that really excite you right now?
I get very excited by seeing new people, and I think also people open a restaurant with one idea in mind, and sometimes they dovetail it a little bit. But I think people are spending more time planning their restaurant openings and working out what the community wants and what will fly. And because of that, we've got some amazing new places opening. And if I look at 2 new plated restaurants, both De Tafel and Terrarium, in fact, were winners of WWF Sassy Awards. One was the chef, Gregory Henderson, and the other was Terrarium as the restaurant. And that's a real showcase of what we should be doing in the restaurant space.
We actually had Gregory in studio probably a month or 2 ago now, and he brought some tasting items in with him. Lucky me. Absolutely endorse what you said there. The food is extraordinary, but the thought that went into crafting those dishes was just off the table. So the 3 plates, I just want to quickly run through this list of the restaurants that achieved 3-plate status last night. Mainly Cape Town based, Jenny, and again that it was obvious last night that the fine dining world does seem to be weighted towards Cape Town. But are we seeing? I mean, I know the Living Room, for example, in KZN has been making waves for some time now. Is Joburg catching up on the act?
I think the offering is very different in Johannesburg and wonderful, but that's why we have regional representation. And I think they, again, shorter meal times, they love the cocktail bars, they love the decor, very vibey. A lot of business is transacted in a restaurant in Joburg. So it's quite different here. We sleep here, slower, beautiful mountain setting, wine farm, sea. And people are often on holiday when they're eating here. So I think it is very different. And that is taken into consideration, definitely.
Well, to read up about the winning destinations and the new exciting newcomers that you should be making your reservation now before they're all gone for the season. Jenny, where does one get hold of the brand new edition of the Gourmet Guide?
Well, the best is, again, on our website. There is a digital version available. And otherwise, the Gourmet Guide print version, we've got a special commemorative edition, which will be available courtesy of San Pellegrino and Nespresso in the plated restaurants, should they wish to get a printed version.
Okay, so do ask when you're dining at one of these. You can ask to get a copy there. Otherwise, go to gourmetguide.co.za to look at the digital version. Well, Jenny, congratulations on the 10-year milestone. Thank you for a wonderful evening last night. And I love the fact that you are showcasing the extraordinary talent and creativity that we are seeing bubbling up. It's a very, very exciting time to be dining out in Cape Town, isn't it?
It certainly is. And thank you, Pippa.
It's my great pleasure. Jenny Handley of the Gourmet Guide. The website again, gourmetguide.co.za.